I think the numbers tell an incredible story. I mean, 54 startups received close to $1.5 million in grants last year. And that was, of course, matched with private dollars as well. So that expands that amount. And then, targeted founders, we always talk about the importance of making sure funding is spread across a more diverse base. So what we define targeted founders as women, veterans, BIPOC founders, and those in greater Minnesota. And 67% of our grants have gone to that targeted area. So I am very proud to be part of an organization with those kind of statistics. And then if we look, back even just a little bit further, of course, Launch is still a relatively young program, but the difference that this, that Deed and this, immediate small team of Launch Minnesota has been able to make is, incredible. We surveyed some of our grantees from that first biennium, 47 grantees, and they hired at least 37 full-time employees, 49% secured private investment, and grantees collectively raised $35 million. And that represents a $9 return for every Launch Minnesota dollar invested and a $40 return for startups that secured private investments. That's a lot of numbers and it's a lot of data to just spit out. But when I saw those statistics, I was awed by what this program and this organization has been able to accomplish since 2019.
That's amazing. Now, I want to come back to the targeted founders angle there. One of the things that happened with Launch Minnesota in 2021 that was probably one of the biggest stories in that sector was that it was on the chopping block, that there was a possibility that it wasn't going to be funded. And after all of the stats that you just said, it makes me wonder why that was ever a possibility in the first place. I'm just wondering why you think there was even a chance that Launch Minnesota, this program that was helping entrepreneurs across the state, that was helping small business, why you think that there was even a chance that they wouldn't fund it? Because what was funding in the next 2 years, like 1.8?
Yes, close to that. Mm-hmm.
Okay. In the grand scheme of things, that's not like a ton of money for a state budget. So I'm wondering, do you think there's still kind of a disbelief that small business and entrepreneurship can really make an impact in Minnesota?
I think we've seen that it can make a pretty big impact. And I think those numbers tell that story. Obviously, all of that was before my time, so I can't provide a lot of details as to what was going on, and I won't pretend to assume any of that. But all I can say is I am incredibly grateful that our funding was renewed. This is huge. And we have seen, what a difference just that, like you said, of what seems like a relatively small amount of money can make for people. 100% of our grantees said that amount of money, we award up to $35,000 to a company if they receive one of the innovation grants. And that may seem like, small potatoes for some people, but for an early stage startup, that's everything. And so we are really grateful that we have been refunded and that we have 4 years to show, again, that this program can make a huge difference for the Minnesota startup community.
Now, you mentioned the targeted founders, women, BIPOC in greater Minnesota. Talk a little bit more about how Launch Minnesota is impacting those demographics. The focus on DEI initiatives has grown exponentially even in the past couple of years. There's still a ton of work to be done, but I would just like to hear from you, kind of diving in a little bit deeper into how Launch Minnesota is impacting women founders, BIPOC founders, greater Minnesota founders.
Yeah, well, we've just, Neela especially, she's been at this for 2 years. She and everyone else involved in Launch Minnesota, we've done our best to connect with those groups in the first place and make sure they know that we exist and the resources that we have available. So we've worked with, groups like the Coven and MEDA and so many other organizations. In greater Minnesota, we have organizations like Launchpad Bemidji, Innovate 218 in the Northeast, E1, Red Wing Ignite. What I learned in journalism is just, you have to get to know then your sources, but now the people that you're serving. We don't want to come down and just say, here's what works. We want to listen to these communities, hear their pain points, and see what we can do to help them. So we've just done our best to make those connections and stay connected and make really good relationships to make sure that we can make a difference for those people. We don't want to assume anything about what they want or what's beneficial to those groups. So, yeah, it's just about good communication.
In coming into Launch Minnesota, did you have any things personally in mind that you wanted to kind of make your goals to change or improve in the Launch Minnesota process?
I think one thing that people have said to me is they want help sharing stories and doing marketing. And of course, those are the two things that I specialize in. So I was happy to hear about that. Um, but again, there are so many amazing founders here, and there's so many great success stories. And I wanted to, do my best to share those stories, maybe talk about what people in, for example, Northeast Minnesota are doing, share what has worked in the Twin Cities or share what has worked in the Southwest. So we talk about the importance of, connect, convene, and catalyze. So those are the things that I hope to use my background to sort of bring into this position and, continue to build on the awesomeness that Launch Minnesota already is.
So are we going to see more direct storytelling from Launch Minnesota going forward?
We hope so. Yes. I mean, we we don't want to. I'm certainly not starting a new publication, but I hope through our newsletters, through our social media, through working with great organizations like tech.mn, we can continue to tell some really amazing stories.
Let's talk about innovation grants.
Mhm.
That's one of the key things that Launch Minnesota is doing right now, providing those grants to those targeted founders that we've talked about. A lot of money has been handed out. Just for the audience who may not be directly familiar with innovation grants, talk about the process and how that money is allocated. I think there's a match with private funds as well. Hopefully, I'm not getting that wrong. Just talk about a little bit in general about the innovation grants program.
Sure. So our innovation grants, they target the most promising businesses in Minnesota that have either an innovative technology or an innovative business model or product. And the funding that they receive through an innovation grant can be used for research and development, direct business expenses, or technology assistance. So if you apply, you can receive up to $35,000, and that is has to be matched with private dollars as well. So it's a great way to incentivize investors in the community to also get in on this. And it's been very well received. And since inception, we have awarded more than $4 million in undiluted funding to Minnesota startups.
That's fantastic. Do you know if there are going to be any changes to the allocation process going forward, or is it going to kind of remain the same?
It's going to be it's going to be relatively the same moving forward. The way that it works is, a founder will submit an application. It'll go for internal review. We will determine if the startup is eligible and meets the criteria. And then if it is, then it moves on to our external review process. And, board members, et cetera, also take a look at the companies and help us decide who gets funded.
Great. Let's look forward. 2022 and 2023. What's coming from Launch Minnesota? What can people expect?
So many things. So now that I'm on board and we have Neil and I have a lot of stuff in mind. Most recently, we launched a statewide startup calendar. So a lot of organizations have startup calendars, but we wanted to have one that really illustrated everything going on across the state. So you can access that on our website. More education grants. So we will be awarding grants to groups to help provide education to new entrepreneurs, more innovation grants, of course, and the Minnesota Exchange, which is a new platform that launched last year with local startup Kinetic, who I believe was recently on the podcast. So everyone should keep an eye out for everything going on with Launch in 2022 because it's going to be a lot. And then, of course, helping startups and community members along the way. We're not just here for our grantees, we're here for entrepreneurial support organizations, innovators in general, anyone that we can help. So I encourage everyone to reach out and get to know us a little bit better.